Lil Jazzy. Hey, everybody.
Hey, happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
Happy
How
Sunday.
are you, Robin?
I am doing great. How are you?
Wonderful. I cannot complain. I will not complain.
Doesn't make
Um,
things any better.
it doesn't. You can always find things to complain about, but I guess, like Tanya said, it doesn't make it any better. So, today we have Robin on board with us. The title is Creative Entrepreneurship, wearing many hats, because you wear many hats.
Yes, I
Okay.
do.
So we
Yeah.
wanted to talk about that today because being married, running a household, and running all of these businesses that you run, we're going to talk about that and talk about how do you keep your sanity with running all of
Yes.
these businesses, right?
Yes.
Because I know that crazy Beyonce, well, I don't even want to call her crazy, but a lot of people want to say she crazy. Anyway, she say, who runs the world?
Girl.
Girls.
Yeah.
Because women have been really showing it up lately.
That's right.
So we've
Yeah.
been really dominating, and I like that. So
Yes. Yes.
today we have Robin, which I said she wears many hats. She's an author. Um, Obviously, she's a wife. She's a gardener.
Yes.
Who
Girl.
knew? Yes, she's a gardener. She really loved the episode tying with your friend
I did.
With
too.
Angie. Oh my goodness.
Yes, she
Partner too.
loved that
Yeah.
episode.
That's work too.
That's a
Yes.
lot of work.
Yes, it
She
is.
also owns a greeting card company.
Oh,
So she has her hands in a lot of pots. So we're going to talk about that. But in the meantime, because she is a children's author, and what is the name of your book, Robin?
It's called Mama Got Rhythm, Daddy Got Rhyme. And actually, I have my book here. So I'm going to just hold it up so that the audience can see it. It's called Mama Got Rhythm, Daddy Got Rhyme. And it was illustrated by Mario Moore, who is an excellent Detroit based artist.
I love the way that sounds, like Tanya said, off the grid. It's got a really nice
I
ring
like
to
that.
Yeah.
it.
Thank
So because she is an author, we decided to say, like, what it was one of your favorite children's books growing up, like that you can remember in school, your parents reading to you, or just one you might have went, because back in the day, in our time, we actually went and checked books out the library.
I
That's
miss
right.
I miss those days
I
too,
still do
Tanya.
that. Guilty. I was still do that.
I miss it. I really do miss it. So, like, what was one of your favorite books?
There's two series that I really enjoyed as a child. The first is probably a favorite among many, but the Dr. Seuss series.
Okay.
That was one of the series that I really enjoyed. His collection of books, Dr. Seuss books. And then as I got a little bit older, I discovered the Goosebumps series by
Yes.
R.L. Stein. Yeah, they also used to have like these videos or these short segments that they created from his books. And so I used to watch those too. But those were the two series that were among my favorites when I was younger.
Okay. I used to like the Goosebumps series. You know what was funny is because they actually had the nerve to be scary. Like that music. I mean,
Yeah.
as a child,
As a
anyway.
child,
As
it
a
was.
child.
It was like now that you look back on it, it wasn't
Yeah,
that
it wasn't
scary,
scary,
but
but as a kid, it was kind of like, ooh, it's so suspenseful, but yeah,
right.
it's kind of weird now. You be like, I can't believe I was actually scared of this. But
Yeah.
what about you, Tanya?
Unlike you guys, I didn't read those kind of books. I was reading Judy Blume
I knew it.
and
But
the
Judy Bloom was good though. I'm not gonna lie.
and like Sweet Valley High.
Okay.
And when they made the books from like Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew, I read those. So I've always
Okay.
been into like mystery and like romance
Mhm.
and then like choose your ending kind of books.
Okay.
When I was younger, and that's what my youngest child does now.
Okay.
She's all into that, except she's not reading the teenage versions of it. So it's like,
Okay.
But I'm just happy she's reading. But
Yes, at least she's reading, and that's what's important.
She just asked me to order her some more books today. But anyway, but I was never like the scary. I'm not a scary book person to this day. So you guys mentioned Goosebumps. I have not read not one Goosebump.
So what I thought about my books is I went way back, like to kindergarten. So I loved like Clifford the Big Red Dog.
Yeah.
Like I loved that series. Like I just always wanted to know what he was doing, right? And I was also a fan of Dr. Seuss books as well. You know, because who didn't like a good Dr. Seuss book with the rhymes and everything? And even though I still make jokes with people now, at work because they can't stand it, I still love. Tanya, you probably know the original name of this type of reading when they introduce it to you in school. See Jane Run. You know,
the phonics books.
Yes, those. And I do that to people at work when they act like they can't understand me, so they absolutely know what I'm talking about, right? Did you see Jane Run? And they be like, okay, you trying to be funny.
Right. Robin, what were you about to say?
No, I was just gonna say, there are several books that I can think of that, that I really loved growing up. My grandmother was a teacher, and so she would often bring us books, as gifts. And so those were just some of my memories, special memories of her. So thank you for that question.
Oh, that's sweet. And I liked a lot of poetry books as well. So everybody favorite Where the Sidewalk Ends, that, but it still is always one that you are going to find on everybody's shelf, when you go different places. So it's spread over time. So listen, Robin, as always, I did forget something in Q.
Okay.
When we say, where are we going today?
Oh, yes. Where are we going today?
We're going all the way there.
We're going all the way.
So we say it together, Robin. So I'm going to say it. So ladies, where are we going today?
We're all the way there.
We're going all the way there.
All the way there.
Yeah. Where are we going today? All the way there. Let's go.
So listen, everybody. Robin, I'm so glad to have you here on the podcast with us today. And so we're going to allow you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, thank you again for having me on. I love watching your show, and so it's an honor to be with you. I am, as you shared earlier, I am a published children's author. I'm also a certified teacher, published poet. I also do speaking. So I'm a public speaker, and I am a business owner. And so I look forward to talking to you about how I wear those different hats in addition to being a wife and being a friend and having time for myself.
Wait, Robin, you're a certified teacher?
I am. I'm a certified teacher.
Are you teaching now?
No, actually, I recently transitioned out of the classroom into full-time entrepreneurship, but I actually just made that transition this year. So I finished up the academic school year and ended out in June, but I'm now a full-time entrepreneur. So yes, I'm celebrating that transition, and so. It's exciting, but I had a great experience with working with the scholars that I had. Last year, I taught kindergarten, and I've taught kindergarten, first grade, and when I taught art and science, I actually taught kindergarten through fourth grade.
Okay, nice. That's beautiful.
That is beautiful. So you guys have good, big hearts for things like that. Like I wouldn't mind the teaching part. I just would want the classroom to be empty.
Oh, well, you know what? Like, then you wouldn't have a career.
I wouldn't. So that's
empty.
why I say whoever is called to that, let those be called.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
It
it's
is
definitely a calling and a gift for some people who have that type of, I just think of even being a parent, like trying to do homework at home. I'm like, how do a teacher deal with this with 30 kids? I'm like, if Johnny had 5 apples, I don't know how y'all do it. I don't know. But I thank God for y'all every day. Right?
It does. It takes a lot of patience, and it not only takes a lot of patience, it takes a lot of endurance, because there's just a lot that our babies are dealing with, at a much younger age in many cases today. And when you talk about them coming into the classroom to even be prepared to learn, sometimes you have to even get them ready or to a place where they're ready to learn, whether it be because maybe if they're hungry and they didn't have an adequate breakfast and they came in late, because most schools provide breakfast in the morning. But those are just some of the challenges that you have to work around and you have to confront to even make sure that our babies are ready to learn the lessons that you plan for them to learn, that day or that week. So you're right. It takes a lot. It takes a lot. It does.
And seriously, you can't teach anyone that you don't know.
That's right.
And I think that is so, like a lot of teachers that just get in just to teach for like a 8 to 3 or 9 to 5, and just think you turn it off at the end of the day. They're the ones that's really probably having the most hardest time, because you're not developing those relationships, and you can't hit milestones with students if you don't know them. So, and
it's funny, Tanya, that you even say that, because honestly, as a kid, you even know those teachers. You don't know that at that time, but when you think back about it, you like, she did not care. You know what I'm saying?
You remember who they are.
Yeah.
You remember who they are. Those
you really do.
Clock out when that last bell rings.
Yep.
It's never good. So I taught for 6.5 years, 3rd grade, until we had a family. So we had like 5 kids within 5 years. And I knew that as dedicated as I was, I could not be in a classroom with those babies and then come home to my own. So we just decided not to, that I wouldn't go back. So I stayed for 7 years. And then when I did go back, I went back into education. So I'm still impactful in regards to the babies, but not in a classroom sense.
And you know what? I can really respect that, Tanya, because I think that one of the hardest things sometimes for us to do, especially as women, is to negotiate the different roles that we have. But sometimes when we are honest with ourselves about where we're at and what we need, it not only is beneficial to, the people that we're serving. And in this case, we're talking about teaching babies. And, you said that you had the 3rd grade. Did I hear
graders.
The 3rd graders. And so those are still, they're still in an age range where they need a lot, not as much as, kindergartners like I have, but they still need us. And
definitely.
And, when you talk about teaching, it's more than just preparing your lesson. Like you said, what we learn in school is just a foundation, but there's no textbook child, there's no textbook person. And so, when you get into that classroom, like you said, you have to be vulnerable and willing to develop those relationships with your scholars. I say scholars because even though I know that, we are talking about young people, they still have a body of knowledge that they're building upon. And so I always say young scholars. And, I can relate to what you shared, because for me, I not only transitioned out of the classroom to pursue full-time entrepreneurship, but I also knew that I needed a different pace for my health and for, my well-being. And that was somewhat challenging because, like you shared, even earlier, being a teacher is a calling, and I definitely feel called to teach. But what I have come to accept and what I have come to acknowledge is that you can be a teacher even outside of the classroom. You know, your setting may change, but the fact that you're a teacher and you identify as a teacher doesn't change.
Right.
And even now that I'm a full-time entrepreneur, I still teach in different ways and use those same skills, but in a different setting. And so, you know, I think that it's okay. It's okay to be honest with yourself as to what you need. And in fact, for me, you know, I know we're talking about entrepreneurship today. I think that's important to success as an entrepreneur and just in general is to acknowledge what you need and where you're at in terms of your journey so that you can figure out what is the best place for you to be.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. So before we move to all of your many hats that you wear, Tanya, did you get my text?
You texted me?
I did. But anyway, we wanted to talk about you received an award.
Yes, I did.
You
Yes,
received
I
an
did.
award.
Yeah.
So we were gonna talk about that.
I just got it.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. So we're gonna show. I want them to know what this award is, and you're gonna tell them because this is a big deal. Like this is an honor,
Yes,
and I'm glad to even see like you know a woman because you know men they always standing up on the pedestals everywhere, you know, popping their collars. But I'm glad to discuss this. So tell us about your alumni award.
Sure. You know, I was honored earlier this year. I learned from the University of Michigan that I was nominated and selected for Alumnus of the Year. And
Nice.
that was through the College of Education, Health, and Human Services. And I'm an alumni of the University of Michigan, Dearborn.
Nice.
And so I was really pleased to receive that news and honored. And on Friday, this past Friday, I actually joined my family and my friends at the University of Michigan, Dearborn for the award ceremony. And so it was a beautiful program. And I also want to acknowledge my other colleagues who were honored on that day, which includes the mayor of Dearborn. I live, my husband and I, we live in Dearborn, Michigan. And so there were just dynamic individuals there. So I was honored to be among them.
That's beautiful.
That's nice. And I must say, I love your smile.
Oh,
I know.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that is so well deserved. You could tell just how happy you are.
I
Thank
know.
you.
That's a beautiful
For
thing.
granted. You didn't take it for granted at all. And it's
No, I
smile.
didn't. And you know,
So
as I was sharing with you earlier, you know, even though now I've transitioned into full-time entrepreneurship, again, you know, my award was from my College of Education, Health, and Human Services. So they were acknowledging me for my contributions to education and the community. And so again, I'm still a teacher. I still identify as a teacher. I'm just teaching in a different capacity, in a different setting. And I'm at peace with that. I know that I'm where I need to be right now.
Right. And when you know, it just it feels right. You
That's
know.
right. That's
So
right.
tell us about the scholarship because you got a lot of stuff going on, Robin.
Yeah.
Like we can't keep up. So tell us about the scholarship.
Sure. So I have a scholarship that was established last year at the University of Michigan, Dearborn, and it's in my name. It's the Robin M. Wilson
Wow.
Scholarship. And it's for undergrad and graduate students who are majoring in business or education and who have a diagnosed learning difference. Mm-hmm. And so I say learning difference, and that's actually the language that's included on the website. If your listeners want to go to the University of Michigan Dearborn financial aid page, they can read more about the scholarship. But essentially, it's for individuals who have some documented learning difference. Some people say disability, and that's okay. If someone identifies as being someone who has a disability or a learning difference, that scholarship is specifically for them. And the reason that I wanted to focus on that specific group of individuals is because I was diagnosed with a learning difference as an adult. I did not know for the majority of, my life that I was dyslexic. But when I was 28 years old is when I received the diagnoses. And so that really helped me. I mean, I know some people might think, well, how did you feel? And I've actually had some individuals ask me that when I've shared it. And I actually felt relieved because I finally had an answer. I finally had an answer to the why, certain things have been a struggle for me. And I had a lot of interventions that I received when I was younger. So I'm thankful that despite not knowing that I was dyslexic, that I was still able to be successful and that I am successful.
Yes.
But what I'm trying to say is that it really, really helped me once I finally received the official diagnoses, because I think some people, they don't like to use labels, and maybe some people feel like that is a label. To me, I think that you can't begin to resolve an issue if you don't first name it.
Exactly.
That's true.
Exactly.
So like for me, I didn't feel like someone was trying to label me. I just felt that, okay, now I have an answer. So now I'm able to be strategic, which I am. I'm a strategic thinker. Now I know how to strategically work around this barrier, and I have. And so I want other young people, as well as even non-traditional age students at the University of Michigan Dearborn, to have the funding support that they need to complete their education, because I received substantial financial aid when I was at the University of Michigan Dearborn. And if it wasn't for the merit scholarships that I received, then, I think it would have been much more challenging for me to finish. But thankfully, I was able to apply for and win multiple scholarships. So I was able to graduate.
That's awesome.
Yes.
That
So,
is awesome, Robin.
and I just want to circle back and go to your childhood. So dyslexia, and you had no idea when you were younger, your parents, your teachers, they just offer you extra help in school, and no one ever thought to say, let's test and see if something. So you must have did a good job covering that up.
Can you guys say exactly what dyslexia is for people who may be a little uncertain?
Sure. No, and I'll answer both of your questions because they're great questions. So the first thing that I want your listeners to understand about dyslexia is that it's a spectrum disorder.
Okay.
And so what that means is that you can be mildly dyslexic, moderately dyslexic, or severely dyslexic. In my case, I'm what's considered mildly or moderately, depending on, the area, dyslexic. Okay. And so I say depending on the area, because you can be dyslexic in your reading and writing, your language skills, or you can be dyslexic in math, or both. And sometimes those symptoms of dyslexia are not always identified at a very young age. In fact, there are quite a few adults, who make it to their adulthood and they've never received a diagnosis. But one of the things that I would share is that if you have had persistent issues in the area of mathematics or in the area of, your reading, despite adequate training, despite adequate education, if there is some persistent challenges that you've dealt with, then if you have not been tested for dyslexia, I would highly encourage you to reach out to your local psychology clinic. Not every psychology clinic is is certified and equipped to diagnose dyslexia. So you definitely need to make sure that you reach out to a clinic that's certified and equipped to do that. But once you find your local psychology clinic to go in for your testing, then you can really start to get some answers.
And basically it's when you like flip numbers or flip words or letters, correct, Robin?
So actually that's a myth. You know, that's not, it's more so regarding the way that you process.
Okay.
So, you know, maybe for some individuals they do that, but overwhelmingly it's more of an issue with like decoding words. And again, it's a spectrum disorder. So what one dyslexic person might struggle with might not look the same for another dyslexic person, depending on how severely dyslexic they are.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I'll give an example. In my case, when I was younger, I struggled with decoding certain words. The more complex the words became, the more challenging it became for me to decode those words. I had to have some resources and some supports. And to answer your question, you asked me earlier, why wasn't it identified earlier in my case? You know, I think that sometimes teachers are not always equipped to recognize the signs and symptoms, because they're actually, even to this day, there's still not every program, every teacher preparation program does not require their teachers to go through training on disabilities. Now, I had that training when I went through my teacher education program at the University of Michigan, Dearborn. And you can actually diagnose a child as early as 5. There's resources for screenings that you can have done to help you identify it early on. But sometimes teachers are not always trained to be able to recognize what those signs or symptoms are. And in my case, I did have an early diagnosis of health impairment, because I was an epileptic. And so because I had epilepsy from the time that I was 4 to the time that I was 13, the medications that they had me on, it made me very tired. And so that really affected the way that I was able to concentrate in class, you know, and it was just very frustrating, to be quite honest with you. But I've always been creative, and I've always been really skilled with stories. And more so, even when I was a struggling reader, I still love books, you know, like it wasn't that I could not read. So I don't want to make it seem like I could not read. It was just that as time went on, I was not progressing in the way that I should have been progressing. And thankfully, there was a woman in my church who, she came after me when I was 13 years old. I had walked out of a Bible study because I had to write this reflection, and it was based on the message that had been given. And I really wanted to communicate everything that I had learned, but I just did not communicate it in the way that I wanted to on paper. And I did not want anyone to know that I was struggling.
Okay.
So instead of just raising my hand and saying I'm struggling, I put down my Bible and I left. I walked out of the room. And so she went after me and she asked me what was wrong. And I just tearfully told her, I'm a struggling reader. I was struggling, and I did not want anyone to know, because it wasn't that my peers at school, some of my peers at school, it wasn't like they didn't know, but I didn't want my peers within my youth Bible study to know. They didn't know, because even then I was really skilled at communicating orally. I'm telling you that when it came to having conversations about different topics, I followed just fine. I followed along with you just well. So unless you had seen me attempting to write something, or you had heard me reading at that point, you just would
You
not
would
have
never
known.
know.
You
Right.
would never know. And so for me, again, I'm thankful for her name is Terry Brenston. I'll just shout her out because I've
All
honored
right,
her.
Terry.
Yes, I've honored her before, and thanked her because she was so instrumental. She worked with me. She helped me to overcome my reading challenges.
Nice.
And, by the time that I graduated from high school, within my first year of college, I was at a 12th grade reading level. That's
Oh, nice.
yeah,
Nice.
that's hard to close that gap, but
Right.
I did it.
That's a blessing. That's another thing that since we've been doing this podcast made me appreciate with teachers too. It's so many things you guys have to recognize in the classroom, like to determine if a student need the help or are they just a lazy student, because some kids just they're not coming to paper to class with pen and paper regardless. They just like whatever. It's not because they're not smart, they just not gonna do it. And then you have to be in tune to see like who's who. Like, to me, that's a lot of dedication. And I give hats off to y'all all the time. When I really think about it more in depth, and then more than one kid at a time, I'm already stressed just thinking about it. Like Susie, she don't need this. Tim need this. Like all of that. That's y'all were called.
It's a full-time job, I'm telling you. And everyone has different learning styles, even if they don't have a learning difference. Everyone has a different learning style. And when you're a teacher in the classroom, you're trying to cater to all those learning styles while teaching the content and caring for them. And it's a lot. It is.
Yeah. Well, you guys got I have a newfound respect for it. So we know that you wear many, many hats.
Yes.
So let's talk about your book right quick. Like we talked about it and you showed us, but what is the book about exactly?
Sure. Well, growing up, I loved music. In fact, it was one of the ways that I really learned. I learned through using music and sometimes singing the spelling of different words that would really help me. And even before I transitioned out of the classroom as a teacher, I would use music with my scholars to help teach them, different vocabulary words. And because I have a love of music, I wanted to share that with young people through my book. And so Mama Got Rhythm, Daddy Got Rhyme is about a young girl who loves R&B music. And she doesn't really think that, her parents' music has anything to do with her because they love jazz. And so the story is about their journey together as they're helping her to understand how the musicians that they listen to helped influence the music that she listens to. And so that's what Mama Got Rhythm, Daddy Got Rhyme is about.
Nice.
Yes. So kids, every time I go to, either do a book reading or, share the writing process with kids, I always love to play jazz music for them too, so they can also hear the music. And one of the things that I've noticed is that if I play the right type of jazz for them, then they can start hearing some of the rhythms that they even hear, in their R&B, and they always think that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because it's funny how so much music cross over. It's amazing. Even in rap, you'll hear certain jazz or R&B little things inside of rap. So it's amazing how they all just kind of switch up each other's thing. So Tanya, did you have a question?
No, when you just said that, I just thought about I love the way you move. I love the way. That's jazz.
Right. Exactly.
By Outkast. Yeah.
But no, I'm enjoying this conversation.
I love Outkast too. They have some really good music too.
Is that the only book you have right now? Are you working on others?
Yes, I am working on others. So I have children's manuscript. It's called Jazzabit, an original jazz alphabet, and it's a poem that I actually wrote, and it's a poem written in a story format. So it's not like A is for Armstrong, B is for, Count Basie. It's not like that. It's not that. It's literally is a poem that tells a story about jazz and about this one particular family in New York City. And so I recently made a connection with I shouldn't say the publisher. The publisher of is connected to the woman that I met in Brazil. So recently I was in Brazil for 1 month for a Fulbright fellowship. And while I was there, I made a connection with a woman in the arts community, and she and I have stayed in touch. Her daughter owns a publishing company in New York. And so I recently submitted my manuscript to her. They asked me if I can submit it in Portuguese because they speak Portuguese in Brazil. So I'm going to have someone to translate it, because even though I'm learning Portuguese, I'm not fluent in Portuguese. So there is just no way that I can translate it on my own. But I'm going to send it to someone that I know who is a translator, and have him to translate it so that she can review it. And if they accept it, then it will be published not only in English, but it will also be published in Portuguese. So I'm hopeful.
Very nice.
Yes.
Very nice. Okay, so since we're talking about wearing a mini hat, so tell us about your greeting card company.
Yes. So I just love being creative. And one of the things that I do is I have two companies, as you mentioned earlier. One of my companies is Heritage Home and Garden. And one of the products that we offer is a line of greeting cards. And so I'm just going to hold up some of my greeting cards so that your audience can see. So this one is Be Still.
Okay.
And on the inside, it has, I like using a lot of different layers. So you'll notice that there's different textures that I use and that I love to work with. This is the inside of the card. On the inside, it says, God is working things out for your good and for his glory. Be encouraged. And then at the bottom, it has a scripture from Psalm 46, verse 10, which says, he says, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. And so it has the B on the front. And I just like really play with the image instead of using the word. I put a really beautiful B applique on the front, and it's Be Still. So this is just, one of my cards that I designed. And I'll just briefly show you a few others. So this is a new one that I recently designed. Okay. And some of the cards in our line are blank on the inside, like this one. So you can make out your message to say whatever you want to say to your loved one. But if there were 3 words that I could use to just describe the style of our cards, is simple, vibrant elegance. It's simple, vibrant elegance, because the messages are simple, and straight to the point, but the cards are vibrant, but there's still like a sense of elegance to them.
Right. And they look thick. Like
really good card stock.
Yes, like really good.
It is really good card stock. It is, and I really love using premium card stock.
Yes, you can tell.
Yes, and so we've been doing really well. I recently had.
Oh, that's so pretty.
Thank you. Yes, I recently had a woman who came to the market where I do direct selling, and she explained to me that she has a relative who lives in France, in the south of France, in Marseille. And she said, well, I asked her, well, where are you sending your cards to? And she said, I'm going to send one to my daughter-in-law in Marseille and one of the cards to my sister in Washington, D.C. So I was really celebrating with, family and friends recently, because I said, we're going global.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
Are your cards on one of a kind?
You know what? They are, because not only are they handmade, I make them by hand, but I also put a lot of detail and layering into the design of my greeting cards. And so when I'm making them, I'm thinking about, well, what do I want this particular card to communicate, not just in terms of the language that is inside of the card, but just in terms of the imagery, because sometimes we can communicate more with less. And so that's, even the example that I gave of the one with the bee, I didn't have to put the word bee to communicate, the message, because people still get it. If they see it, they still get the message. And so, yeah.
And in a world where everybody is using emojis and stuff like that, is perfect, because everybody is going to read it. They're going to immediately know exactly what it means.
Right? That's right. That's right.
And what's the price range of your cards?
So the price range of my cards are between $7 and $20, and you can order them individually, or you can order them in packs of 10. So the packs of 10 are $20. That's the highest range. But what you get is you get handmade quality, high card stock quality, and for that price, it's competitive. It's
That's very competitive, because I'm looking at how thick that paper look, and if it had a certain name on it, that would be an $8.99 card. You know what I mean? Right. So very competitive pricing.
Well, for the individual cards, like this one that I showed you earlier, this one would go for $10 at market.
I can see that.
Yeah, it would. And actually, I sold one that was similar to this one for that price. And the woman that I was telling you about, she bought 3 cards from me on that day. And so they're doing really well. And I'm actually working on getting a website developed, because the way that we started is just by going to market days, our local market days. And so then once that really took off, I started to put the cards on Instagram and doing short videos about them. And I've actually sold a couple of cards by doing that as well, because people are seeing the reels and they're reaching out to me and asking, how can I order your cards? And so it's exciting.
Very nice.
Oh, Robin, I just blew your whole business up in my head. We'll talk about it.
Okay.
And she is definitely the person for that. When it comes to that. Aaron has a question.
Sure.
Are the cards online only for purchase, or are they in a store?
You know what? I'm actually working on getting them into a store right now. You can follow me on Instagram at Robin M. Wilson, and I will send you like an order link. So I'm Robin M. Wilson on Instagram, and if you follow me there, I will make sure that I send you an order link. But I've been going. A friend of mine recently invited me to. It's called the Detroit Artist Breakfast Club, and they meet every Monday at Marygrove College in Detroit. And so I just recently started going there, and it's just an awesome community of creatives, and they show their work. And if you want to sell your work live, it's almost set up in the auction style, and you just have to sign up and you can go there and you can sell your artwork. So I'm actually going to be there tomorrow for your listeners who are in Detroit, because if you want to come out, I will be selling some of my cards as well as some of my other home goods. Like I have pillows that I make too. Like we're in the process of expanding our line of home goods, but I'll like hold up one of the pillows so that you can see. So this is a handmade pillow that I made.
Oh, Robin, you just do it all. Like we really need to figure this out. That's beautiful.
Classroom,
child. No, that's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. So we have more than one, product that we offer, and because we've been doing really good at market, we're in the process of designing a website so that it makes it easier for people to access our products and our produce. Because we also we grow produce in our community, and we sell it directly to residents who live in our local community. But we are also in conversation with a local cafe about providing them with produce in the upcoming growing season. And so there's a lot happening and on the horizon. I'm really excited about it. And like I said, it just really started out from us going to the market days. I say us, and when I say us, I mean my husband and I, because I make the cards and I make the home goods, but my husband helps me with the land that we have in Dearborn with growing the produce. So we work together.
So another power couple.
Yeah.
I
I'm
love
thankful
it
for my husband. Yeah.
I love it. So
Yes.
let's get to the magical question of the day.
Yes.
How do Robin do all of this, maintain a marriage, run all of these businesses, and keep her sanity?
Yes. I know that I just shared that my husband is supportive, and I don't think that I could do everything that I do if I didn't have a supportive community. My husband is a part of my community of support. I have awesome friends who are also business owners, and we share our knowledge with one another. We encourage one another. There are times in business where you might get discouraged. And so I've definitely been there. And as I shared with you, I recently transitioned out of the classroom into full-time entrepreneurship. So this is a different walk.
Mm-hmm.
You have to think differently than you think when you're working for someone else.
That's very true.
You're working for yourself, but along with that, you have to be of a certain mindset. So that's what I would say, is that if someone who is listening is wondering, like, how does she do it? I have a certain mindset. Not only do I place God first, but my family is second. And I say second because God is first,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
so my family, is supportive of me, and we support one another. My husband, he has his things that he does too. My husband does real estate. And so we support one another, how we can support one another, but also having supportive family and friends, I would say, has been really instrumental for me keeping my sanity and being successful.
Right.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. And then stepping out from where you are depending on a check weekly, you have to have a different mindset,
That's
because
right.
you are kind of bringing in your own revenue. So you're going to hit that pavement a little different.
Mhm.
That's right. That's right. And I have to say, some people might think, how could you walk away from a steady paycheck? The reality is, if you really think about it, even though I know teachers are in demand, so there's some career paths that tend to be a little bit more secure than others, but the reality is that when you work for someone else, you really are at their mercy. It's really about what works for them. And if they decide that one day you don't work for them anymore, whether that be for their budget, like they can no longer afford to keep you on, or they're downsizing in a department, whatever the case may be, that check may seem like a safety net, but it's really not.
Really not. Yeah.
It's not. And so actually, in my opinion, when you're working for someone else, and this is not a slight to anyone who's working for someone else, because I think that you have to know where you're supposed to be.
Exactly.
And again, being an entrepreneur requires a different mindset. But in my opinion, when you're working for someone else, you still are a risk taker. You're taking a risk.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are going to be, moments, if you haven't experienced it, where you might be looking for another job for one reason or another.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, the way that I look at what I do is I just made a conscious decision, with the support of my family and, and direction from God. I just made a conscious decision that I wanted to pursue my passion for entrepreneurship and serving others, and I wanted to work for myself. So
I love it.
yeah.
So, Tanya, did you have something?
No, I'm listening.
So the one magic question, because I know time is winding down. Because I know you talked about your marketing strategies off the grid.
Yeah.
So did you want to go over something with that to becoming on making things more lucrative for you on the marketing side of it? Because everybody have these great ideas about becoming an entrepreneur and these business ideas, and then they get out and they face reality, and the reality of it is sometimes the money it all sounds great, but the money is just not flowing the way you think, or people don't realize they got to spend as much to make as much. So you want to touch on that a little bit?
Absolutely. Well, as I shared with you, I have two businesses. So my business, Heritage Home and Garden, is a home and garden company. And then I also own and operate Robin Wilson Educational Consulting, LLC, which is an educational consulting practice. And we primarily focus on and specialize in literacy programming. And so last year, I worked on designing a course for a local nonprofit organization. And that course is a course that is high quality. In fact, as we're talking about creative entrepreneurship, that's how my creativity is expressed in the consulting side of my business, which is, you have to have a creative thought process to design a course or to design curriculum in addition to the pedagogy. It's a creative process.
Okay.
However, what I have found is that while there are organizations that need our programming and need our services, that doesn't always mean that they're able to afford those services, because the very people who we were created and purpose to serve sometimes are not always, they don't always have the budgets to bring in programs like the ones that we offer. So what I've had to do, and the reason that I'm sharing that to the question that you asked, is I'm now working with Tanya, who is our educational advisor within our company. And we're working to incorporate automation within our program design to make programs more affordable. But we're also getting ready to work on designing other high quality programs, but at a more affordable price range.
Okay.
And doing some restructuring within our company so that we can go after grants and fundraise, so that we can help the programs that are reaching out, the organizations that are reaching out to us, who may not have the robust budgets that they need to be able to fully afford our range of services. So I'm mentioning that because sometimes we can create things that are needed by others, but if they don't have the budgets, to bring in those services, then there's still a barrier.
Right.
And I know from having talked to other educational consultants, one in particular, that the barrier that we're facing in terms of, the feedback that we're receiving from some of our prospective clients who are reaching out to us is common. And that's actually, something that another consultant that I was talking to, she told me that when she restructured her company to include a philanthropic branch, she was able to then use some of those grant funds and the funds that they raised to put that money towards the projects that were coming, their way. They needed their resources, but they didn't necessarily have the huge budgets. So I share that to say, you might hear that and you might think, well, if you just transition into full-time entrepreneurship and you're now reworking or restructuring your price points, isn't that scary or isn't that frustrating? And I would say, I wouldn't say that it's scary. I would say that it's just, being a educational consultant, being a business person in general, you're a problem solver. And
Mm-hmm.
so while maybe sometimes there are barriers that I have to work through within my business as I'm seeking to serve individuals, there's always a way to solve a problem. And
Okay.
it just takes time, but there's always a way to solve a problem or a barrier, to get around a barrier. And so you just have to really make sure that as you're walking through your entrepreneurial journey, if you encounter a barrier like the one that I've shared, that you have people around you who can support you, because it's not always easy. But you have to have a certain mindset to be able to persevere and to push through it to still be successful.
It's true.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
And you definitely have to get through those I don't know what they call it professionally, but the down moments, cuz people always think that it's going to always be the up moments. But I'm so glad that you were able to come on and share with that. I mean, you really do wear a lot of hats. Like, you literally could have, you know what, you should have been switching hats, like gardener, author, like that.
Yes.
um Congratulations on your award. We wanted
Thank
to
you.
say that is a great accomplishment. We definitely wish you the best in all the future things, and to just overcome, you beat the odds against a lot of things and still, made it to the top. So that's a blessing
Yes.
and a testimony of the people that they can still push through, because sometimes I don't think that people feel down. They feel down because of what they have, but to know that someone else made it through will maybe kind of push them to, like, I can do this too.
That's
So
right.
I think that's a wonderful thing.
And I hope it encourages people young and old that if you feel like something's not right with your comprehension or something, to just go and get tested.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because being diagnosed with dyslexia or any learning difference for that matter, what I really just want to leave your listeners with is that there's different types of learning differences, there's different types of disabilities. And so, for me, when I hear someone say that they have a disability, or if I hear someone say they have a learning difference, I don't assume that means they can't do anything.
Right.
And that's what I just hope that people have learned from our conversation, that while I am always willing to, self-identify as someone who has been diagnosed with a learning difference, there's more that I can do than is a challenge for me. And so we all have our areas of strengths and we all have our
Definitely.
areas of weakness, and that's whether you have a learning difference or
Or
not,
not. That's very
and
true.
I think that it just really depends on your perspective, your
Mhm.
mindset, your perspective. It matters. It will determine whether or not, in addition to you having supports, the proper supports, your mindset truly will determine whether or not you go far. And I just really hope that people who are listening understand that you can go far. You can do a lot. You just have to believe in yourself and count yourself in when other people might even count you out.
And that was the podcast last week, changing your mindset. So here you guys got it 2 weeks in a row. So Tanya, really quick, what's the challenge?
Oh, I think I partly said it, that if you feel like
Okay.
something's not right, then
Oh yes, you
it's
did.
not
You
the place to
did.
get it checked out.
So that's the challenge, guys.
Yes.
Yes, that's the challenge.
Yes.
So we want to encourage everybody to have an awesome week. Accept the challenge as Tanya stated. And thank
And
you,
if it's
Robin.
anything you really want to do, do it. Don't quit your job. Make sure you hear from God first.
That's right. Yes.
Definitely hear from God.
Yes.
Something you really want to do, I say do it. Go for it.
Yes.
Go for it. Go for it. It's your year. So
Yeah.
everybody have an awesome week and see you later.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.